Reginald Grey, 3rd Baron Grey de Ruthyn, a powerful Welsh marcher lord, succeeded to the title on his father's death in July 1388. Lineage: Reginald Grey was the eldest son of Reginald Grey, 2nd Baron Grey de Ruthyn and Eleanor Estrange of Blackmere. His paternal grandparents were Roger Grey, 1st Baron Grey de Ruthyn, and Elizabeth de Hastings. His maternal grandparents were John Lestrange, 2nd Baron Strange of Blackmere and Ancaret le Boteler. His youngest sister Ida de Grey, who married Sir John Cockayne, was an ancestress of Anne and Mary Boleyn. Marriages and issue: Grey married firstly, after the 25th of November 1378, Margaret de Roos, daughter of Thomas de Ros, 4th Baron de Ros of Helmsley, by Beatrice Stafford, daughter of Ralph de Stafford, 1st Earl of Stafford, by whom he had 2 sons and several daughters, including Thomas Grey, Sir John Grey, eldest surviving son, who predeceased his father. He married Constance Holland, the daughter of Elizabeth Plantagenet and John Holland, 1st Duke of Exeter, by whom he had issue. Margaret Grey, who married William Bonville, 1st Baron Bonville. These were the great-grandparents of wealthy heiress Cecily Bonville, 7th Baroness Harrington, who married Thomas Grey, 1st Marquess of Dorset, a descendant of Reginald Grey by his second marriage. Catherine Grey married George Lucy, Baron Lucy. Eleanor Grey, who married Robert Poynings, 4th Baron Poynings, by whom she had 3 sons, Sir Richard Poynings, Sir Robert Poynings and Edward Poynings. Grey married secondly on the 7th of February 1415, Joan de Astley, daughter of Sir William de Astley, 4th Baron Astley, and Joan de Willoughby, by whom he had 3 sons and 3 daughters, including Sir Edward Grey, who married Elizabeth Ferrers, 6th Baroness Ferrers of Groby, and had 5 children, including Sir John Grey of Groby, the first husband of Elizabeth Woodville. Robert Grey, who married Eleanor Lowe. John Grey of Kempston, Bedfordshire. Constance Grey, who married Sir John Cressy. Elizabeth Grey, who married Sir William Calthorpe, by whom she had issue. Eleanor Grey, who married William Lucy, Esquire, of Charlecote, Warwickshire. Alice Grey married Sir John Knivet, a descendant of Sir John Knivet. Rebellion of Orwain Glyndŵr. In 1410, after a long legal dispute, the younger Reginald won the right to bear the arms of the Hastings family, but rather than the undifferenced arms which were borne by the Hastings of Sutton, he won the right to the high estate as courted arms borne by his deceased cousin the Earl of Pembroke, Hastings quartering Valence. Since he had gained the right to bear these arms from his claim through his paternal head-mother, he displayed quarterly 1 and amp. 4, Grey de Ruthyn, 2 and amp. 3, Hastings quartering Valence. More important from a financial perspective, he gained title to certain properties of the estate. De Grey enjoyed the favour both of Richard II and Henry IV, and his chief military exploits were against the Welsh. During the rebellion of Orwain Glyndŵr, Reginald de Grey was responsible for issuing and enforcing royal demands in the Northern March, such as calling the local nobility and gentry and the men to royal and military service. He was already in a long-running legal dispute with Glyndŵr, claiming a tranche of Glyn's land as his own. Under King Richard II the case had been found in favour of Glyndŵr, but on the usurpation of King Henry IV of England, Lord Grey seized the land. Early in September 1400, Henry IV left Newcastle and travelled south to Northampton, which he reached by 19th. The news reached the king of the quarrel that had broken out between Grey and Glyndŵr. Grey was a member of the King's Council. Glyndŵr responded in law early in 1400, but his case was not granted a hearing. Instead, it was asked of Glyndŵr that he grant Lord Grey further concessions. Grey also delayed summoning Glyndŵr's to a levy of men for service in Scotland until the last moment, making it impossible for Glyndŵr to respond as requested or even send an explanation for his absence and the lack of his levy. Such an act as refusal or failure to respond to an order of the king was deemed a treasonous act. Glyndŵr's estates were deemed forfeit until he could prove his loyalty or receive due punishment. On the 16th of September, Owain and brothers had taken up arms and burned Grey's property. For 3 days the Welsh band ravaged the countryside of Flintshire and Denbighshire. On the 24th of September, Glyndŵr's forces were encircled at Welshpool and defeated. Grey now invited Glyndŵr to a reconciliation meeting, but arrived with a large force, attempting to surround Glyndŵr and making his intentions clear. Glyndŵr escaped with his life and went into hiding, confirming himself a traitor in English eyes. King Henry confiscated the estates of Glyndŵr's supporters and granted them to John Beaufort, his half-brother. The rebellion spread after initial successes for the Welsh, and by 1402 it was gathering momentum. Lord Grey was captured by Glyndŵr's forces in an ambush near Ruthyn in January. A ransom of 10,000 marks was asked for him, and Lord Grey was asked to swear an oath never to bear arms against Glyndŵr again. King Henry IV sent 11 knights to treat with Glyndŵr and then complied with the ransom, ordering the selling of a manor in Kent to raise the moneys in mid-1402. On the 22nd of June, Glyndŵr had captured another important hostage, Edmund Mortimer. Lord Grey then would have been expected to repay the amount over time as best he could, and any outstanding debt would be borne by his family. In August, Glyndŵr went south into the Marches. The king, however, held Grey in better view than Mortimer, whom he considered a troublemaker. While Grey and Earl of Northumberland were loyal, it was clear that Hotspur intended to join Glyndŵr's rebellion. Hotspur had refused to surrender the Scots prisoner, Earl of Douglas, to the king, and had demanded that Edmund Mortimer be purchased his freedom. Henry was furious that his power should be challenged in this way. The king wrote to Grey and other leading nobles on the 23rd of November 1409, demanding that all officers who were entreating with Glyndŵr should cease forthwith. The rebellion had failed after the recapture of Harlech and release of Mortimer's family. The Grey family did in fact sell the Ruthyn lordship to King Henry VII in 1508 when the fortunes and favour had declined. 100 Years' War. Grey was a member of the council which governed England during the absence of Henry V in France in 1415. He later fought against the French in the 100 Years' War in 1420 and 1421. He had been previously a governor of Ireland. Bibliography. Richardson, Douglas. Everingham, Kimball G. ed. Magna Carta Ancestry, a study in colonial and medieval families. 2. Salt Lake City, Utah, ISBN 1449966,381. Richardson, Douglas. Everingham, Kimball G. ed. Magna Carta Ancestry, a study in colonial and medieval families. 3. Salt Lake City, Utah, ISBN 144996639-X.